Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. Colombia today is undoubtedly better off than it was 20 years ago. The country has reduced its homicide rate, vigorously fought terrorism, dismantled cartels, and improved most social welfare variables. However, the country's Pacific region, where I come from, continues to face monumental challenges. Violence stemming from multiple illicit economies and a lack of decisive action are eternal brakes on its development. The continued presence of guerrilla groups, their dissidences, and multiple other expressions of organized crime demonstrate that the real driving force behind violence in the country persists: the profitability of drug trafficking and rampant impunity. The exponential increase by almost 100,000 hectares planted with coca since 2010 at the national level demonstrates that the phenomenon is far from receding. In this part of the country alone, cultivation grew by 97.4%. My department, Valle del Cauca, is a clear example of what this means. It is not about an apparently harmless bush. Drug trafficking has permeated daily life and seriously threatened citizens, their life, their well-being, and their belongings. Because of its geography, with access to the sea and strategic mountain ranges, it is an epicenter of crime. Today, Cali, the department's capital and third largest city in Colombia, has the highest number of homicides in the entire country. What happened recently with the national strike in April is a disturbing snapshot of what lies beneath these statistics. It is a testament of the strength of criminals, of their flourishing business, and of their capacity to affect society. It is also a serious warning about the impact of negligent, or tolerant at least, local authorities in regards to illegality. Although some politicians deny the evidence with alarming partiality, crime during the strike was a dominant player. It mutated and adapted to perfection, as it constantly does. Colombia experienced an episode of social protest that turned, in Cali, into an undeniably urban criminal takeover. The road blockades that Cali suffered for more than 3 months more closely resemble a failed state than any imperfect definition of a working democracy based on the rule of law. Organized crime and terrorism took advantage of general discontent and of our institutional lethargy to fatten their pockets and to strengthen themselves. The effect for the region is not a creation out of fantasy. May of 2021 was the month with the most homicides in 5 years in Cali. Unemployment rose to 24.3% and food prices skyrocketed. The price of a pound of potatoes, for instance, increased by 525%. Efforts to counter drug trafficking should increasingly trigger those who hide under a veil of legality and who profit the most without consequences, through politics, through business, through whichever the cover. They must also increasingly consider the additional dynamics that intertwine to improve the math. In our case, this includes vandalism, terrorism, corruption, and apparently legitimate social strikes. Local governments, including Cali's, for example, must recognize their responsibility in dealing with the criminal phenomena that permeate their territories. Their unwillingness to accept that they're responsible for public safety is a serious breach of their legal duty. The mayor of Cali must have been investigated. He was unwilling to recover control of the city after a significant percentage of the city's roads were systematically blocked by criminals. His negligence strengthened local organized crime, sacrificed rule of law, and affected the vast majority of citizens. Anti-narcotic strategies must identify and target the strongest players, as has been said, in the drug trafficking chain and all of its associated dynamics. Politicians, for example, that through action or inaction add to the toll of death, destruction, and fear that we endure as citizens must also be called to the front. For that to happen, the focus of efforts must also shed light into the more impudent corners. Those who hide in beaches in Miami, souks in Dubai, high-rises in London, or behind a city hall in any corner of the world, but delight in the profits of crime and narcotics must also be a priority to curtail the effects their greed has on society. Thank you.